I have here a couple more basic graphing problems, and with them I hope to address some common sources of confusion. So let me put the first one up. It is y is equal to negative x squared. So this looks like a very similar example to the one I gave earlier, but you're going to see there's a place where a lot of people are going to stumble and mess up. So we'll make a table. Our answers go over here. And again, I'm just going to do -2 to positive 2. So let's begin by plugging in the first point, and you're going to see right away where someone could very easily make a mistake. So we have -2 squared. So here right away is where a common mistake is made, because a lot of people who've been away from math or didn't pay much attention earlier or just have forgotten about order of operations might make the mistake of eliminating that minus sign in the front, because I see over here -x squared, so they figure, oh, it's a minus sign. Whenever you square something, it eliminates that minus sign because a minus times a minus is a positive, and that is true. But here, notice the order of operations. Here, we are first squaring this -2. So right now it's -2 squared, which is indeed positive 4. But then after, we then add the minus sign, so it becomes -4. So we get -4. So our point is -2 -4. And it's a very common mistake. It's very easy to make. I remember I made it numerous times when I was first learning algebra. So I definitely thought I would pick a problem where I addressed that. And not only that, when you make a very simple mistake like that, it sometimes can lead to a lot of frustration, because you'll look in the back of the book for the answer and you'll see that it's not correct. And you'll go through the mechanics of the problem and say, well, I plugged in my answer, I did what I was supposed to, why is it wrong? And they automatically assume that you know all of these like the back of your hand. So it can lead to a lot of frustration, because you read the section, you see that you've done everything correctly, but the only thing is that they assume that you understand everything from beforehand. So that's why I wanted to address it. So in the second point that we're going to look for, the same thing is going to happen. We're going to have a negative number, and then we're going to square it, but we have to make sure that we realize that this is a separate thing being squared. We don't add this in first. That's another thing a lot of people will do. They'll do, oh, -1 times the minus. Remember, order of operations. PEMDAS, which is kind of a, what's that word? An acronym, I think. That's what the definition is. It's an acronym for everything. So parentheses, exponents, and what is it? Yeah, parentheses, exponents, and multiplication. So right here we're using the exponent, we're doing that, and then we're doing the multiplication. So we distribute the exponent first, which we get +1, and then we distribute the minus sign, so we then get -1. So -1, -1. This one's pretty simple. -0 squared, 0, 0, 0. Y is equal to -1 squared. Again, all of these, it's very easy to distribute that minus sign by accident, but you have to remember to keep it separate. So 1 squared is 1, and then distribute the minus sign, so -1. And lastly, -2 squared. 2 squared is 4, distribute the minus, -4. So let's now graph all of our points. minus 2 minus 4. That is right here. Second point is minus 1 minus 1. Our third point is 0, 0. Our fourth point is 1 minus 1. And our last point is 2 minus 4. And there you have it. So again, we have another one of these umbrella shapes, but this time it's pointing downwards. And that's because we have this minus sign here. And later on we're going to learn about different kinds of functions classifying different types of equations. So where we would look at this, we would say this is, well, I'm not really going to talk about it right now, but we're going to group all of these x squareds together. They're going to be a certain type of equation. They're all going to behave in a similar way. And we'll learn about that in the future, where we'll be able to predict what that minus sign is going to do and what's going to happen when we subtract some things and add. We're going to learn about that for every kind of function, where it's just plain x, where it's 1 over x, where x to the third, x to the fourth, x to the fifth, the square root of x. We're going to learn about them all. But for now, just worry about graphing them. So that's that example. And I have one more. And again, the theme, it really is about being careful with order of operations. So this one is y is equal to the absolute value of x plus 1. And remember, the absolute value means that we take its numerical value. So that means we basically eliminate the negative signs. So if I have, let's just do a quick review. So let's say if I have the absolute value of negative 2, that's equal to 2. If I have the absolute value of negative 10, that's equal to 10. If I have the absolute value of 4, that's equal to 4. That means we just take its numerical value. It's very useful in physics, where sometimes in a calculation we'll get a negative number, but it'll be a distance or a weight or something where we know it's a positive value, and in fact it will ruin the equation if it's a negative value, because the equation is written knowing full well that it has to be a positive value. So while you won't really see many uses for it here in college algebra, whenever you take physics, you'll definitely be using it quite often. So we'll make our table. And right away, it's going to be the negatives that are going to throw us off. So if we plug in minus 2, we get minus 2 plus 1. And a common mistake that will be made is people will immediately take the absolute value. So if you immediately take the absolute value of this, what you're going to get is 3, right? If you take it right away. But you have to remember order of operations, so parentheses. You have to do everything what's in the parentheses first. So if we do what is in the parentheses first, we're going to get minus 2 plus 1, which is minus 1. Take the absolute value of minus 1, which is 1. So if we don't do it correctly, we will get positive 3. If we do it correctly, we will get 1. So you have to be on the lookout for order of operations. It's very easy to make a mistake. People do it all the time. And I really wanted to point this out because sometimes it's hard to see where you went wrong. So we have our point minus 2, 1. And here again we're going to have the same sort of deal where we have minus 1 plus 1 absolute value. If we take the absolute value right away, we're going to get 1 plus 1, which is 2, but that's not the correct answer because we have to do order of operations. We have to obey the order of operations. And the order of operations calls for minus 1 plus 1 first, which is 0. So our answer is 0. not positive 2. Minus 1, 0. And the rest of them are straightforward, where really no mistakes should be made. This is going to be 1, 0, 1. Next one, 1 plus 1. And the absolute value doesn't really do anything for positive numbers. So 2, 1, 2, and lastly, y is equal to 2 plus absolute value 2 plus 1, which is 3. So we get 2, 3. So let's graph this and be done. Alright, so we have minus 2, 1. Second point, minus 1, 0. Third point, 0, 1. Fourth point, 1, 2. And our last point, 2, 3. Connect these together. And these absolute values are going to have this very characteristic V shape because the y's will never be negative because it's an absolute value. Correct. At least in this one right here. I mean, if you have an outside the absolute value minus 5, then you could have a negative. But if the entire equation's in these absolute values, you're going to have this characteristic V-shaped graph. And we'll learn, like I said, when we learn about the different kinds of equations, we'll know to look for these patterns, and you'll be able to just look at the graph and be able to take a good guess at what the equation will be. But the main purpose of this video was to address some common mistakes that are made from simple I guess very simple math errors that are common at the beginning level, where sometimes you're not very sure where you made a mistake because you'll be looking at the current section to where you made the mistake, but what you actually made a mistake in is something that you should have known already, or that they assume that you know already. So if you find yourself making mistakes like this, go back and make sure you studied the order of operations, and just give that a quick look over. I always remember it by PEMDAS, which is the acronym. So PEMDAS, which stands for parentheses, exponents, so it's exponent, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. That's the easiest way for me to remember. And parentheses means that you do things in the parentheses first. And exponents means then you do the exponents, then you do multiplication, then division, then addition, then subtraction. So make sure you go over this if you didn't remember it or didn't learn it, or anything like that, or you just have trouble remembering it, because it will definitely cause you some headaches in the algebra from now and to come. So it's very critical that you learn it.